The diplomatic vessel hung dead in space, its engines dark and cooling rapidly. Inside, Hana paced the command deck with growing frustration. Her crimson scales caught the emergency lighting, making her appear like a flame in the darkness. She stood 12 feet tall, her wings folded tight against her back, her tail lashing with impatience. "How long until the backup systems engage?" she asked her chief engineer. The smaller Veltheran shook his head. "The cascade failure damaged everything, Princess. We need external assistance." Hana's golden eyes narrowed. A princess of the Veltheran Empire, daughter of War Marshal Taman, did not wait helplessly for rescue. But physics cared nothing for pride or titles. Without power, they would freeze or suffocate within hours. The distress beacon had been active for 2 hours when a response finally came. Hana expected a Veltheran military vessel or perhaps a merchant ship from one of the allied species. Instead, the communication officer's voice carried obvious distaste. "Princess, a human salvage crew is responding to our beacon." Hana felt her escort guard stiffen around her. Humans. The galaxy's newest spacefaring species, barely 2 centuries off their homeworld. They were tiny creatures, fragile and short-lived. Most Veltherans considered them little more than clever animals who had stumbled into technology. "Do we have other options?" Hana asked. "No, Princess. They are the only vessel within range." Hana straightened her shoulders. "Then we accept their assistance. Relay our coordinates and situation." The human ship arrived within the hour. It was a small battered vessel covered in repair patches and modification pods. Hana watched through the viewport as it maneuvered alongside with surprising precision. The name painted on its hull read "Second Chance" in human script. When the airlock cycled open, Hana got her first close look at humans. They were so small, the tallest barely reached her chest. They wore bulky spacesuits that made them look even more awkward. But their leader moved with confidence as he approached. He removed his helmet, revealing a young face with dark hair and darker eyes. "I'm Doyen, Chief Engineer of the Second Chance. We received your distress call." His voice was deeper than she expected from such a small being. He spoke Galactic Standard clearly, though with an accent that marked him as human. "I am Princess Hana of the Veltheran Empire," she replied formally. "Our vessel has suffered catastrophic systems failure." Doyen nodded, already pulling out scanning equipment. "May I examine your engine systems?" One of Hana's guards stepped forward. "A human cannot possibly understand Veltheran technology." Doyen smiled slightly. "Technology is technology. Matter and energy follow the same rules regardless of who builds the ship." He looked at Hana. "Princess?" Something in his calm confidence intrigued her. "You have my permission." What followed amazed everyone aboard. Doyen moved through the disabled systems with speed and certainty. He asked questions that revealed deep understanding. He identified problems the Veltheran engineers had missed. Within an hour, he had mapped the entire cascade failure. "The good news is everything can be repaired," Doyen said, projecting a holographic diagram. "The bad news is it will take about 3 weeks. Your primary power coupling failed and took out secondary systems. We'll need to fabricate replacement parts." 3 weeks? Hana's chief engineer looked offended. "Impossible. These systems are too complex." Doyen shrugged. "Then you'll drift here for 6 months until a Veltheran shipyard can send a heavy repair vessel." "Your choice." Hana made her decision quickly. "Begin repairs, Engineer Doyen." Over the following days, Hana found herself drawn to observe the repair work. Doyen and his small human crew worked with remarkable efficiency. They used tools and techniques she had never seen. When Veltheran engineering insisted something was impossible, Doyen found another way. "How do you know so much?" Hana asked one evening, finding Doyen alone in the engine compartment. He looked up from his work, streaked with grease and coolant. "Necessity. Humans don't have the resources or time that older species do. We can't afford to say something is impossible. We have to make things work with what we have." "Your lifespan," Hana said quietly. "I have heard humans live barely a century." "If we're lucky," Doyen agreed. "How long do Veltherans live?" 1,000 years, sometimes more." Doyen was quiet for a moment. That must be lonely, watching generations pass. No one had ever said that to Hana before. Veltherans prided themselves on their longevity. It proved their superiority. But Doyen had identified something she had felt, but never voiced. Yes, it was lonely. She had watched allies grow old and die. She had seen empires rise and fall. Time stretched before her like an endless ocean. Sometimes, she admitted. That conversation began something unexpected. Each evening, after the day's work, Hana and Doyun would talk. He told her about Earth, about human history and art and philosophy. He spoke of humanity's drive to reach the stars despite knowing they would never live long enough to see the destinations they dreamed of. She told him about Veltheran culture, about the weight of tradition and the burden of perfection. She explained how Veltherans were taught from hatching that they were the galaxy's apex species, superior in every way. Do you believe that? Doyun asked. Hana considered carefully. I believed it without question until recently. But watching you work, hearing your ideas, I wonder if superiority is not about strength or lifespan. Perhaps it is about what you do with the time and abilities you have. Doyun smiled. That's very human thinking. Perhaps some human thinking is not so primitive. The repairs progressed ahead of schedule. Doyun's modifications actually improved several systems beyond their original specifications. Hana's engineers reluctantly admitted the human knew his craft. But Hana's guards noticed their princess spending increasing time with the human engineer. Whispers began. When Hana laughed at one of Doyun's stories, a sound rarely heard from the serious princess, the whispers became concerned reports. On the final day of repairs, Doyun performed the last system checks. Everything functioned perfectly. The diplomatic vessel was ready to continue its journey. Hana stood in the airlock facing Doyun. His crew had already returned to their ship. They were alone. Thank you, Engineer Doyun, you have done excellent work. It was my pleasure, Princess Hana. She hesitated, something she never did. Hana was decisive, trained from youth to act without doubt. But now she felt uncertain. I have a proposal, she said finally. I am traveling to the Galactic Council Summit. The negotiations will involve technical matters. I would like you to join my delegation as a consultant. Doyun's eyes widened. Princess, I'm honored, but I'm just a salvage engineer, and I'm human. You are the most skilled engineer I have encountered in 2 centuries of life. Your species is irrelevant. Your people won't see it that way. I am a princess of the Veltheran Empire. I choose my own advisors. Doyun studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. Then I accept. When Hana announced her decision to her staff, the reaction was immediate and severe. Her guards protested. Her diplomatic staff warned of scandal. Her chief of security declared it a security risk. Hana overrode them all. But when they reached the council station and Hana walked through the corridors with Doyun at her side, she felt the stares. She heard the whispers. Other Veltherans looked at her with shock and disapproval. Other species watched with amusement or disgust. That night, secure communication channels lit up across the galaxy. A Veltheran princess had brought a human into her inner circle. War Marshal Taman received reports with growing anger. The Veltheran High Council convened emergency sessions. Hana stood at her quarters viewport watching ships come and go from the station. Doyun approached quietly. I'm causing you problems, he said. You are revealing problems that already existed, Hana replied. The galaxy fears change. They fear what they do not understand. And us? What are we? Hana turned to face him. She had asked herself the same question. What had begun as professional respect had become something deeper. She enjoyed his company. She valued his thoughts. When he smiled, she felt something she could not name. I do not know, she said honestly. But I would like to find out. Doyun stepped closer. Despite their size difference, despite their completely different biologies, something connected them. The galaxy will not approve, he warned. The galaxy has not lived my life. They do not make my choices. That night, rumor became reality. The Veltheran princess and the human engineer did not hide their growing bond. By morning, the scandal had spread across every civilized world. The galaxy began to mock the dragon princess for her foolish infatuation with a mayfly human. They placed bets on how long it would last. They laughed at the impossibility. But Hana did not care. For the first time in 200 years of careful duty and measured decisions, she chose something for herself. She chose connection over loneliness. She chose the moment over eternity. She chose Doyun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The communication from War Marshal Taman arrived 3 days after the scandal broke. Hana read it alone in her quarters, her claws unconsciously scoring marks in the armrest of her chair. You disgrace our bloodline. You shame the Empire. End this madness immediately, or you are no daughter of mine. The words hurt more than she expected. Her father had trained her, shaped her into a warrior and diplomat. His approval had driven her for 2 centuries. Now that approval was gone, replaced by cold rejection. Doyen found her staring at the message hours later. He said nothing, simply sat beside her. After a long silence, Hana spoke. He has disowned me. I'm sorry. Are you? Hana looked at him.
This is happening because of you?
Because of us. Doyen met her gaze steadily. Do you want me to leave? Hana's answer came without hesitation. No. They both knew it was not that simple. The pressure built daily. Veltharan High Council members contacted Hana, each offering the same message in different words. End this inappropriate relationship. Remember her duty. Restore her honor. Other species watched with entertainment or horror. The proud Veltharan Empire, so certain of their superiority, now had a princess courting a human. Political enemies saw opportunity. Allies saw embarrassment. Human colonial authorities were no better. They sent official messages to Doyen demanding he return immediately. Some called him a traitor. Others feared the diplomatic consequences. A few accused him of somehow manipulating the princess for personal gain. They think I'm using you, Doyen said, reading the latest message. They can't imagine this is real. Hana's tail lashed. Because they think in terms of advantage and exploitation. They cannot conceive of simple connection. But it was not simple. Nothing about their relationship was simple. Hana had to kneel to kiss him. Doyen needed a stepladder to reach her face when she stood. Their biologies were completely different. Yet somehow, impossibly, they fit. Doyen introduced Hana to human music. She had heard human songs before and dismissed them as primitive noise. But when Doyen played her a piece called Clair de Lune, she understood. The music was beautiful not despite its brevity but because of it. Each note mattered because there were so few. That is how humans see everything, Doyen explained. We have so little time. Every moment is precious. Hana taught Doyen Veltharan meditation techniques, methods to slow his perception of time. We learned to savor duration, she said. To appreciate the long view. Maybe that's what we each need, Doyen suggested. You need someone to remind you to live in the moment. I need someone to help me think beyond tomorrow. They spent stolen hours together hiding from the galaxy's judgment. Hana showed Doyen Veltharan combat forms, the flowing movements that had been refined over millennia. Doyen taught Hana human games and jokes, things no Veltharan had ever shared with her. But reality always intruded. The assassination attempts began in the 2nd month. The first was subtle. Poison slipped into Doyen's food. Only his habit of scanning everything he ate saved him. The second was more direct, an armed assailant in a corridor. Hana's combat training saved them both, but Doyen was injured. She held him in the medical bay, her huge clawed hands surprisingly gentle. This cannot continue, she said. They will kill you. Then we leave, Doyen replied. We go somewhere they can't reach us. There is nowhere in the galaxy beyond the Empire's reach. Then we go to the edges. The frontier colonies. Places where nobody cares about Veltharan politics. It was madness. Hana was a princess. She had duties, responsibilities, a position in the galactic order. Walking away from all that for a human who would die in 70 years was foolishness. She began planning their escape that night. Then the impossible happened. Hana collapsed during a diplomatic function. Medical scans revealed something that should not exist. She was pregnant. The doctor, a neutral species with no stake in the scandal, stared at the results in disbelief. This should be impossible. Veltharan and human genetics are completely incompatible. But the scans did not lie. A hybrid child was developing. Its biology somehow adapting to both genetic templates. The doctors had no explanation. Life, it seemed, found ways that science did not predict. When the news leaked, the galaxy's mockery turned to horror and outrage. An actual hybrid child. An abomination. A genetic impossibility that threatened the natural order. The Veltharan High Council issued an immediate demand. Hana must terminate the pregnancy. They offered to restore her titles, forgive her transgressions, welcome her back. All she had to do was eliminate this mistake. Hana's response was delivered publicly. This child is no mistake. I will protect it with my life. Human colonial authorities were equally appalled. They sent delegations to convince Doyen to pressure Hana. They argued about genetic contamination. about the dangers of mixing species, about responsibilities to pure bloodlines. Even some who had supported the relationship turned away. This was too far. This crossed lines that should not be crossed. The Galactic Council convened a special session. Representatives from a dozen species debated what the hybrid child meant. Some called it an evolutionary dead end. Others worried about genetic instability. A few raised concerns about what abilities such a hybrid might possess. The conclusion was unanimous. The child should not be born. Hana and Doyen made their decision together. They would flee to the frontier, to the edges of civilized space where central authorities had little power. They would have their child far from the Empire's reach. Hana's few remaining loyal followers helped arrange their escape. A trusted captain provided a ship. Old friends created false identities. On a dark night, the princess and the engineer slipped away from the station. The Empire declared Hana a traitor and outcast. Her name was struck from official records. Her father made a public statement declaring he had no daughter. Human authorities issued warrants for Doyen's arrest on charges of genetic crimes. The galaxy watched the fugitives flee and placed new bets. How long until they were caught? How long until Hana came to her senses? Would the hybrid child even survive birth? The mockery reached new heights. The Dragon Widow, they called Hana, because she had thrown away her life for a human who would die in an eye blink of Veltheran time. Poems and songs mocked her foolishness. Political commentators used her as an example of why strict species separation was necessary. Hana and Doyen reached Haven's Reach after 3 weeks of hard travel. It was a frontier colony on the edge of mapped space, a rough settlement where people asked few questions and minded their own business. The colony administrator, a grizzled human named Soman, looked them over with tired eyes. "I know who you are," she said. "Everyone knows. You'll find no love here, but we don't turn people away if they work and don't cause trouble." "We want only peace and privacy," Hana said. "Privacy you can have. Peace depends on you." They found a small dwelling on the colony's outskirts. Hana took work as a security officer, her combat skills valued if not her heritage. Doyen opened a small engineering shop, repairing equipment for colonists who could not afford corporate services. The pregnancy grew more difficult as the child developed. The hybrid biology created constant complications. Hana experienced pain that would have killed a human. Human medicine could not help her. Veltheran medicine was denied to her. Doyen worked endless hours modifying medical equipment, trying to create treatments that would work for her unique physiology. He learned more about biology in those months than in his entire previous life. The colonists slowly warmed to them. They saw Hana working long shifts despite obvious pain. They watched Doyen's desperate efforts to help her. Whatever people thought of their relationship, they could not deny the devotion they showed each other. On hard nights when Hana's pain was worst, Doyen would hold her as well as he could and tell her stories of Earth. He described oceans she would never see, mountains she would never climb, seasons she would never experience. "Why do you tell me of things I cannot have?" she asked once. "Because imagining them together makes them real enough," he replied. Hana had given up an empire. She lived in pain and exile. Her own species had rejected her. By all measures, she had lost everything. But when Doyen fell asleep against her side, his tiny hand resting on her scaled arm, she felt something the Empire had never given her. She felt complete. The galaxy continued to mock the Dragon Widow. They called her foolish, deluded, tragic. They predicted her inevitable regret and the child's certain doom. But on Haven's Reach, far from their judgment, Hana and Doyen prepared for their daughter's birth. They chose a name that worked in both human Korean and adapted Veltheran phonetics. They created a nursery filled with items from both their cultures. They planned for a future the galaxy insisted could not exist. And every night, Hana placed her hand on her swollen belly and felt the strong kicks of the impossible child growing within her. The galaxy had mocked. The galaxy had judged. The galaxy had condemned. Soon the galaxy would hear their child's voice, and they would learn that mockery was premature. The labor began 3 weeks early, in the middle of a storm that battered Haven's Reach with winds strong enough to shake buildings. Hana had been standing watch at the colony perimeter when the first contraction hit. She barely made it home before the second one struck with crippling force. Doyen rushed to gather the medical equipment he had modified and prepared. The colony's human doctor, an older woman named Hyejin, arrived within minutes. She had studied the hybrid biology as much as anyone could, but her face showed worry as she examined Hana. The child's biology is shifting, Hyejin said, changing between configurations. I've never seen anything like this. Hana's claws dug into the reinforced birthing platform Doyen had built. The pain was beyond anything she had experienced. Her body did not know how to give birth to a hybrid child. Human and Veltheran physiologies fought each other even as they tried to work together. Hours passed. The storm outside matched the struggle within. Doyen held Hana's hand, his small human fingers wrapped around one of her massive claws. He spoke constantly, words of encouragement and love, though Hana barely heard them through the pain. The child is in distress, Hyejin said. We need to make a choice. Save the child, Hana gasped. Whatever happens to me, save my daughter. Our daughter, Doyen corrected. And we save you both. Hyejin worked with desperate efficiency. Doyen assisted, his engineering knowledge helping interpret the modified medical equipment. Once Hana's heart stopped, Doyen brought her back with electrical pulses from equipment designed for ship repair. 20 hours after it began, a cry filled the room. Not a human cry, not a Veltheran roar, something between, something new. Hyejin lifted the infant and everyone froze in wonder. The child was beautiful. She had scales like her mother, but they shimmered with colors no pure Veltheran possessed, shifting through reds and golds and hints of blue. Her eyes were human, large and expressive, the deep brown of her father's. She was smaller than a Veltheran infant, but far larger and more developed than a human baby. Jiwon, Hana whispered, reaching for her daughter. Her name is Jiwon. When Jiwon was placed in her mother's arms, the infant opened her eyes and looked directly at Hana. There was intelligence there, awareness beyond what any newborn should have. Then Jiwon turned her gaze to Doyen, and her tiny face formed what might have been a smile. The recovery was long. Hana had come closer to death than she cared to admit. But as she regained strength, she watched her daughter with constant amazement. Jiwon was remarkable from the beginning. She grew faster than Veltheran young, but developed mentally and emotionally faster than human children. At 2 weeks old, she could hold her head up. At 1 month, she was crawling with incredible speed. At 3 months, she spoke her first word, though no one was certain if it was human or Veltheran. By her first birthday, Jiwon was as developed as a human 4-year-old and as physically capable as a young Veltheran. She ran through the colony with tireless energy. Her scales had settled into a beautiful iridescent crimson that shifted to golden bright light. Small wings had emerged from her back, still too weak for flight but growing stronger daily. She spoke both languages fluently, switching between them without thought. When speaking to her mother, Veltheran words flowed naturally. With her father, she used human speech. Often she mixed both in the same sentence, creating a hybrid language only her parents understood. Mama, look. Jiwon called one morning, pointing at the sky. Birds flying high, so pretty? Hana smiled. Jiwon had used a Veltheran word for sky and a human phrase for so pretty. One day you will fly with them, Hana said. Papa says humans cannot fly, Jiwon replied, thoughtful. But I'm not only human. No, Doyen agreed, scooping her up despite her increasing size. You're not only anything. You are everything. The colonists of Haven's Reach had watched Jiwon's birth with skepticism, but the child won them over quickly. She played with human children without overwhelming them despite her greater strength. She showed respect to Veltheran visitors, using proper formal language. She had her mother's courtesy and her father's warmth. One day a human child fell into the colony's water reservoir. Jiwon, only 3 years old, dove in without hesitation. Her Veltheran lung capacity let her stay underwater longer than any human. Her small size let her navigate tight spaces. She pulled the drowning child to safety. After that, the colony's attitude shifted. Jiwon was not an abomination or a curiosity. She was one of them, perhaps the best of them. But peace never lasted on the frontier. Pirates, rogue military groups, and other threats constantly probed the colony's defenses. Haven's Reach was too remote for quick military response, so colonists defended themselves. Hana served on the security force with distinction. Her combat skills were unmatched. She taught human security officers Veltheran fighting techniques, adapted for their smaller bodies. They taught her human tactics, quick and adaptive. Doyen's engineering shop became essential to the colony. He maintained the defense grid, repaired equipment, and created innovations that made life easier and safer. His reputation grew. Even those who disapproved of his relationship with Hana respected his skills. Ji-won grew into a remarkable child. At 5 years old, she stood as tall as her father. Her wings had strengthened enough for short flights. She possessed her mother's natural combat instincts and her father's quick thinking. Hana began teaching Ji-won Veltharan meditation and combat forms. Doyen taught her mathematics, engineering principles, and human history. Ji-won absorbed everything with hunger, her hybrid mind capable of learning and processing at extraordinary rates. "Am I a mistake?" Ji-won asked one night. She had overheard colonists discussing news from the core worlds, where the scandal of her existence still generated debate. Hana knelt beside her daughter. "You are not a mistake. You are a miracle, but people say I should not exist." Doyen sat on Ji-won's other side. "People fear what they do not understand. They say many things that are not true." "What is true?" Ji-won asked. "That you are loved," Hana said firmly. "That you are strong. That you are exactly what you should be. That you are our daughter," Doyen added. "And we are proud of you." Ji-won thought about this, her young face serious. "When I grow up, I will show them. I will show everyone that I am not a mistake." Years passed. Ji-won turned 8, though her development made her seem closer to 12 in human terms or a young adult in Veltharan terms. She had become a bridge in the colony, translating not just languages but cultures. She helped humans understand Veltharan ways and explained human customs to visiting non-humans. Life had found a rhythm. Hard, certainly. Frontier life was never easy. But it was theirs. Hana no longer dreamed of the Empire. Doyen had no regrets about his choice, and Ji-won grew strong and capable, loved by her parents and accepted by the community. The galaxy still talked about them occasionally. The Dragon Widow and her impossible child were a footnote in discussions about genetic ethics and species relations. Most had moved on to other scandals. Some assumed the child had died or proven defective. A few wondered what had become of the exiled princess. None of them imagined what Ji-won was becoming. In the evenings, after her parents thought she was asleep, Ji-won would stand on their dwelling's roof and look at the stars. She knew somewhere out there was the Veltharan Empire that had rejected her mother. Somewhere were the human worlds that had condemned her father. Somewhere was a galaxy that had declared her existence impossible. She spread her growing wings, feeling the wind catch them. Not strong enough yet for true flight, but soon. She thought about the stories her parents told her. About her grandfather who had disowned her mother. About the High Council that had demanded she never be born. About all the people who had mocked her parents' love and predicted tragedy. Ji-won smiled. She had inherited her mother's determination and her father's stubborn optimism. She was stronger than any pure human, faster than most Veltharans. She could think in ways neither species could, seeing problems from two completely different perspectives. The galaxy had called her impossible,
Had said she should not exist.
had mocked the Dragon Widow for her foolish love, but Ji-won was possible. She did exist, and one day, she would show them all exactly what the union of human and Veltharan could create. The storm that had raged during her birth had passed years ago. But another storm was coming, one that would sweep across the galaxy, and Ji-won would be at its center, roaring in two tongues. She just did not know it yet. None of them did. But the galaxy was about to learn that some impossible things were stronger than all the possible things that had come before. The warning sirens woke Haven's Reach at dawn. Ji-won sat up instantly, her hybrid senses already identifying the threat before the announcement came through the colony's communication system. "This is Administrator Somin. The Kryn swarm has entered our system. All security personnel report immediately. All civilians prepare for evacuation." Ji-won was 8 years old. She ran to her parents' room where Hana was already strapping on her combat armor, and Doyen was pulling up defense grid displays. "You will go with the civilian evacuation," Hana said firmly, looking at her daughter. "I can help," Ji-won protested. "You can survive," Doyen said, moving to embrace her. "That is how you help. Stay alive." The Kryn swarm was one of the galaxy's nightmares, a hive-minded insectoid species that consumed everything in their path. They had been expanding aggressively for decades, overwhelming frontier colonies too remote to receive quick military aid. Haven's Reach had always known they might come eventually. The first Kryn ships appeared in orbit within the hour. They were organic vessels, grown rather than built, bristling with bioweapons. Smaller craft began descending, each carrying hundreds of warrior forms. Hana kissed Jiwon's forehead. "Remember that we love you. Remember everything we taught you." Then she was gone, running toward the perimeter where the first Kryn forces were landing. Doyen stayed longer, checking and rechecking Jiwon's evacuation assignment. "Listen to the evacuation coordinators. Stay with the group. Get on the ship." "What about you?" Jiwon asked, though she already knew. "I have work to do here." He smiled, that familiar warm smile that always made her feel safe. "Engineers fix things. That's what we do." The colony erupted into chaos. Security forces, including Hana, engaged the first Kryn waves. Civilians rushed toward the evacuation ships. Doyun ran to the Defense Grid Control Center, where other engineers were already working to activate every weapon the colony possessed. Jiwon moved with the evacuation group, but her attention was on the battle. She could hear the fighting, see the flashes of energy weapons and bioplasma. Her mother was out there. Her father was in the control center. Both were in danger. The evacuation coordinator was a nervous young human who kept checking his tablet. 5 more minutes until the ships are ready," he kept saying. The Kryn were not giving them 5 minutes. A warrior form broke through the defensive line, massive and multi-limbed, covered in chitinous armor. It charged into the civilian gathering area, claws raised to kill. Hana intercepted it with a roar that shook buildings. Her combat skills were legendary, honed over 2 centuries. She fought with savage grace, her claws tearing through Kryn armor. But more were coming, dozens, hundreds. In the control center, Doyen worked frantically. The defense grid was old, barely maintained. He rerouted power, overrode safety systems, pushed everything past its limits. Around him, other engineers followed his instructions. They were buying time with improvised weapons and desperate ingenuity. A Kryn biobomb struck the control center. The building shook. Doyen looked up to see the ceiling cracking. "Everyone out," he shouted. "The building is coming down." The other engineers ran. Doyen stayed at his console. He had just activated a sequence that would turn the entire power grid into a massive electrical discharge. It would destroy the approaching Kryn vanguard, but needed 30 seconds to charge. He could not leave the console. Someone had to maintain the connection. Outside, Hana fought like the warrior princess she had been born to be. Her scales were scored with cuts. Her blood mixed with Krynichor. She had killed dozens, but they kept coming. A massive warrior form larger than any before emerged from a landing craft. It moved with intelligence, directing other Kryn with purpose. A command unit. Hana knew if that commander lived, the colony was doomed. She launched herself at it, wings spreading to carry her across the battlefield. In the evacuation area, the coordinator finally shouted, "Ships are ready. Everyone board now." Jiwon moved with the crowd, but something felt wrong. She could not explain it. A feeling in her chest, a tightness in her throat. She looked back toward the colony, toward where her parents fought and worked. The control center exploded in a massive electrical discharge. Lightning arced across the battlefield, frying Kryn by the hundreds. The vanguard was devastated. The attack wave broke, but the control center was gone. Jiwon screamed. She broke from the evacuation group and ran, faster than any human child could, her Velthoran muscles propelling her with desperate speed. The evacuation coordinator shouted after her. But she did not stop. She reached the ruined control center, fire and debris everywhere, bodies. She searched frantically until she found him. Doyen lay under fallen rubble, his body broken. His eyes were still open. "Still aware, Papa," Jiwon sobbed, trying to lift the debris with her small hands. "Jiwon," he whispered, blood on his lips. "You should be on the ship. I will not leave you. You must." He coughed and more blood came. "Listen to me. You are strong, both human and Velthoran. Both of us, in you." "Please do not die," Jiwon begged. "Cannot choose that." He smiled despite the pain. "But I choose. What I did saved hundreds. Worth it." "Papa, please." "Show them," Doyen said, his voice fading. "Show the galaxy what we made together. Show them you are not a mistake. You are a miracle." His eyes closed. His chest stopped moving. And Jiwon felt something break inside her that would never fully heal. She knelt there, holding her father's hand, until a massive roar shook the ground. The Kryn commander had broken through. It was attacking the evacuation ships. Hana fought desperately, but she was overwhelmed. Dozens of Kryn warriors swarmed her. She went down under their mass. Jiwon saw her mother disappear beneath the enemy, saw the claws rising to deliver killing strikes. Something happened inside Jiwon in that moment, something that had been waiting 8 years to emerge. She stood. Her wings spread fully for the first time, catching air with power that surprised even her. She launched herself from the ruined control center, flying faster than she had ever moved. The sound that came from her throat was unlike anything the galaxy had heard. It was two sounds at once, a Veltharan war roar that resonated at frequencies that paralyzed Kryn nervous systems, and a human battle cry that carried tactical information, coordinating the scattered defenders. Both sounds came from one throat, in perfect harmony. Two voices, two species. One being Jiwon hit the Kryn swarm like a meteor. She was 8 years old and small by Veltharan standards, but her hybrid biology gave her advantages neither parent species possessed. She moved with Veltharan ferocity and human tactical thinking. She used her mother's combat forms combined with her father's problem-solving creativity. She was fast like a human child and strong like a young Veltharan, and capable of thinking in ways that neither species could manage alone. Kryn fell before her, not because she was the strongest or the fastest, but because she fought like nothing they had encountered. She adapted with human speed while hitting with Veltharan power. She analyzed weak points with engineering precision, while attacking with warrior instinct. Hana emerged from the pile of dead Kryn wounded but alive. She saw her daughter fighting with impossible skill and felt pride war with terror. "Jiwon, no!" Hana shouted. "Get to safety." "Not without you," Jiwon roared back, her dual voice cutting through battle noise. Mother and daughter fought together. Hana with centuries of experience. Jiwon with hybrid abilities that made up for her youth. They covered each other, anticipated each other's moves, fought as one unit. The scattered human defenders saw what was happening and rallied. If an 8-year-old child could fight, they could fight. They attacked with renewed determination. The Kryn commander focused on Jiwon, recognizing the threat. It charged with its full mass, intent on crushing this impossible hybrid. Jiwon met its charge head-on. She was a fraction of its size, but she did not hesitate. She used Veltharan's strength to withstand its impact and human agility to slip past its defenses. She found the weak points in its armor that her father had once taught her all creatures possessed. The commander fell. With their leader dead, the Kryn force lost coordination. They became easier targets. The human defenders, inspired by Jiwon's courage, pressed the attack. Within an hour, the assault was broken. The Kryn withdrew, their landing force devastated. Haven's Reach had survived, but the cost was terrible. Buildings destroyed, dozens dead, and among the fallen was Doyun. As the sun set on the battlefield, Jiwon sat beside her father's body. Hana stood behind her, one massive hand on her daughter's shoulder. The evacuation coordinator approached carefully. "The entire battle was recorded," he said quietly. "The colony's defense cameras captured everything. It is already spreading across the communication networks." Hana looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" The footage of Jiwon, her battle cry, her fighting, everyone in the system saw it. By tomorrow, the entire galaxy will see it. Hana looked down at her daughter, who was still holding her father's hand. The galaxy had mocked them, had declared their love impossible, had said their child could not exist. Now that child had saved a colony, had fought with abilities that neither human nor Veltharan alone possessed, had proven that the union of two species could create something greater than either. The galaxy would see the footage. They would analyze Jiwon's dual voice, her hybrid fighting style, her impossible existence made real and powerful. They would see what mockery had blinded them to. The Dragon Widow's child had roared in two tongues, and the galaxy would finally listen. The footage spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within 24 hours, every civilized world had seen it. Within a week, it dominated every newsfeed and discussion forum. The video showed everything. Jiwon's impossible flight, her dual-voiced battle cry, her fighting style that blended two species into something entirely new. Most importantly, it showed an 8-year-old hybrid child saving a colony that should have fallen. Military analysts studied the footage obsessively. They slowed down Jiwon's movements, analyzed her techniques, tried to understand how she did what she did. The dual voice fascinated linguists and biologists. She produced two distinct vocalizations simultaneously, something no single species could accomplish. Genetic scientists demanded access to G1 for study. They argued that understanding her biology could revolutionize medicine and genetics. Politicians saw different opportunities, some wanting to claim her as a symbol, others wanting to control what she represented. On Haven's Reach, G1 was not thinking about any of that. She stood at her father's grave, placed on a hillside overlooking the colony he had helped save. Hana stood beside her, neither speaking. Words seemed inadequate. The messages started arriving within days. The Veltheran Empire requested G1's immediate return for proper education and protection. Human colonial authorities sent similar demands, claiming responsibility for one of humanity's children. A dozen other species and organizations made their own claims and offers. Hana deleted them all. But one message was different. It came through secure military channels from someone Hana had not heard from in 9 years. Her father, War Marshal Taman. "I have seen the footage," the message read. "I need to speak with you. No demands, no threats, just a conversation, please." Hana stared at the message for a long time. The father who had disowned her, who had called her daughter an abomination, now wanted to talk. She should refuse, should delete this message like all the others, but something in the tone made her hesitate. She sent a reply agreeing to a secure communication at a neutral location. 3 days later, Hana and G1 stood in a rented communication suite at Haven's Reach's small spaceport. The hologram flickered to life, showing War Marshal Taman in his military quarters. He looked older. The scales around his eyes had dulled and his movements lacked their former precision. For a long moment nobody spoke. Taman stared at G1. His granddaughter he had demanded never be born. "She has your eyes," Taman finally said to Hana, "and his courage. You have no right to speak of him," Hana said coldly. "No, I do not." Taman looked directly at G1. "I was wrong. About everything. I let fear and tradition blind me to what was actually happening. Why are you telling us this?" Hana asked. "Because the Empire is fracturing. The footage of G1 has sparked something. Young Veltherans are questioning the old ways. They ask why we claim superiority while an 8-year-old hybrid accomplished what our warriors could not." Taman brought up additional displays, news reports from Veltheran worlds, protests, debates. Young Veltherans forming groups that called for change, for accepting new possibilities, for ending the obsession with genetic purity. "You started a revolution," Taman said to G1. "And you are only 8 years old." G1 spoke for the first time. "I did not want a revolution. I wanted to save my mother. The galaxy does not care what you wanted. They will make you into a symbol regardless." "Then the galaxy is foolish," G1 replied. Her dual voice gave her words strange weight. "I am not a symbol. I am a person." Taman smiled slightly. "Spoken like both your parents. Direct like humans. Proud like Veltherans. Why did you really contact us?" Hana asked. "To warn you, and to apologize." Taman's expression turned serious. "Multiple factions want G1. Some to study, some to control, some to eliminate because she represents change they fear. You are not safe on Haven's Reach. You are not safe anywhere." "We have been hunted before," Hana said. "Not like this. Not with the entire galaxy watching. G1 is too important now. Too valuable. Too dangerous to the old order." "What do you suggest?" Hana asked, though her tone suggested she expected no helpful answer. "Come home. To the Empire. I can protect you both." "The Empire that demanded my daughter's death? That Empire? The Empire that is changing because of her?" "Yes, that Empire." Taman leaned forward. "I cannot undo the past, cannot take back what I said or make right what I did wrong. But I can offer you protection now, and perhaps a chance to shape what the Empire becomes." Hana was about to refuse when G1 spoke. "What do you want from me?" Taman looked at his granddaughter. "Nothing. I want to give you something, a choice. You can stay hidden on the frontier, or you can stand in the light and show the galaxy what you are, what you represent." "I do not want to represent anything," G1 said. "Too late. The moment you saved Haven's Reach, you became more than yourself. The question is what you do with that." After the conversation ended, Hana and G1 walked back to their dwelling in silence. The colony was slowly rebuilding. New structures rose where old ones had burned. Life continued despite the tragedy. "Do you want to go back to the Empire?" Hana asked. G1 thought carefully before answering. I want to understand what I am, what it means to be both human and Veltheran. I cannot learn that here. It will be dangerous. Staying here is dangerous too. Grandfather was right about that. They received another message that evening. This one came from a group calling themselves the Unity Movement. They were young Veltharans and humans and members of other species who saw Jiwan as proof that the old divisions were artificial. They asked her to speak at their gathering. More messages came. Some supportive, some threatening. Everyone wanted something from the 8-year-old hybrid who had roared in 2 tongues. Jiwan read them all with her mother. Then she made a decision. I want to speak. Not for Unity Movement or Empire or anyone else, but I want to say my own words. They arranged a public transmission. No handlers, no prepared speeches. Just Jiwan, speaking directly to the galaxy that had declared her impossible. When the transmission began, millions watched across dozens of worlds. They saw a young girl with shimmering scales and human eyes, standing straight and unafraid. Jiwan spoke in alternating Veltheran and human languages, her dual voice making both clear. My name is Jiwan. I am the daughter of Princess Hana of the Veltheran Empire and engineer Doyen of Earth's colonies. The galaxy said I could not exist. But I am here. I am not Veltharan. I am not human. I am both and neither. I am something new, and that frightens many of you. My father died saving people, not Veltharans, not humans, people. He did not care about species. He cared about life. The galaxy is divided by lines that you drew, lines that say this species is superior, this species is inferior, lines that say we cannot mix, cannot join, cannot become something greater together. I am proof those lines are wrong. I am stronger because I am both. I see more because I have 2 perspectives. I can do things neither species alone can do. The galaxy mocked my mother for loving my father, called her foolish, called me impossible. But I am possible, I exist, and I will not hide to make you comfortable with your old ideas. I am not your symbol. I am not your weapon. I am not your experiment. I am Jiwan. I am my parents' daughter, and I am the future you did not plan for. You can fear me. You can try to control me. You can pretend I do not exist. It will not change what I am. It will not change that others like me will come, because love does not respect your boundaries. The galaxy mocked the Dragon Widow. Now hear her child roar in 2 tongues, and understand that your mockery was wasted. Your fear was wasted. Your hatred was wasted. We are here. We are real, and we are not going away. The transmission ended. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then the flood began. Support poured in from unexpected places. Young members of every species who had felt constrained by tradition. Cross-species couples who had hidden. Hybrids from other genetic combinations who had lived in shadows. They came forward inspired by Jiwan's defiance. Opposition came too. Traditionalists of every species rallied against what they called genetic chaos. Conservative factions demanded laws against hybrid births. Extremists made threats. The Veltheran Empire split openly. Progressive factions aligned with Taman and others who saw Jiwan as the future. Conservative factions declared them traitors. Civil conflict erupted on several worlds. Human colonies debated fiercely. Some celebrated Jiwan as proof of humanity's ability to transcend limits. Others worried about losing human identity in a mixed future. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions. Some representatives called for regulation of hybrid births. Others argued for protection of cross-species families. The old order was cracking. Through it all, Jiwan remained on Haven's reach with her mother. They mourned Doyen together. They rebuilt their home together. They faced each day together. 5 years passed. Jiwan grew into a teenager by human standards, a young adult by Veltheran measures. Her abilities matured. Her wings could carry her for hours. Her strength rivaled adult Veltherans. Her mind could solve problems that baffled experts from either species. She traveled, speaking to groups that requested her presence. She defended frontier colonies from threats. She mediated disputes between species. She was not trying to start a movement, but one grew around her anyway. Hana watched her daughter become something greater than either she or Doyen could have imagined. She wore a pendant containing Doyen's ashes, carrying him with her always. Sometimes she spoke to the pendant, telling him about their daughter's latest accomplishment. On the 5th anniversary of the Battle of Haven's Reach, Jiwan stood on the same hillside where her father was buried. She was 13 years old now. Though she looked 18 by human standards, she had become a bridge between worlds, a defender of the forgotten, a voice for the voiceless. She looked at the stars as she had done countless times as a child. But now she knew what was out there. A galaxy slowly changing, slowly accepting that the old ways were not the only ways. She thought about her father, who had given his life to save others, about her mother who had given up an empire for love, about her grandfather who had learned to change, about all the people, human and non-human, who were learning to see past old boundaries. Jiwan spread her wings, the iridescent scales catching the fading light. She opened her mouth and released her dual voice, letting it carry across the valley. A Veltharan war song and a human melody, perfectly intertwined. Two voices, two species, one being. The galaxy had mocked the dragon widow for loving a human. They had called their child impossible. But Jiwan was more than possible. She was inevitable, because love always found a way, because life always adapted, because the future always belonged to those brave enough to embrace it. The galaxy had finally learned what her parents knew from the beginning, that sometimes the most impossible things became the most necessary things, that sometimes what should not exist was exactly what needed to exist, that sometimes a roar in two tongues was the only voice loud enough to change the world.